Hello everyone and welcome to part 17 of the Skyline build, where I'm happy to announce this is the final part in this series. The little Skyline project is all finished. Be sure to stay tuned to the end for some extra beauty shots in my gardens.
Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well, and thank you for tuning into Moose Motion. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed the content, comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new, and be sure you have your post notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the new content. Anyway, thank you for your support, it's highly appreciated.
Hello everyone, and well, it's been a while since I've actually made a YouTube post, so I do apologize for the slight delay, but I mainly wanted to get this clay car project out of the way. So we're going to first start off by doing the rear taillights here and cutting out some bigger holes so they can be sunk in and more level with the actual trunk of the car. Now, this is a fairly easy process. Just take a scalpel and, well, remove the extra layers of plasticine down to the actual base frame, which is, well, oven clay. You will feel the difference with the knife once it hits a solid part. Obviously, that's the oven base. Then once you have your holes cut out, well, then you gently place your taillights in the holes, placing them just enough so they stick out a little bit, but not too much, just so it's kind of like ovaled out like the actual car. And then, well, do some adjustments on the actual level between the bottom half and the top half, because you want to make sure everything's very precise, because, well, with cars, if you're out even just a little bit, the line looks, well, terrible at that point. Then, speaking of lines, now we're just going to add some of the added detail that, well, the R32s in particular have with their straight oriented taillights, and just making sure that everything's sectioned off with our little plasticine knife there. Now moving on to the actual plate, which is, well, kind of a custom order. I had a little request from Tiger HD, who I kind of, well, owe a shout out to from spotting Milton the Moose on a previous episode, which I totally forgot about. So he made a suggestion on making the plate, which you will see later on. At the moment, we're going to make some tow hooks, though, which are just some curled up pieces of armature wire, fairly simple. Now, the rear spoiler needed some touch-ups. Now, for that, what I decided to do, instead of, well, redoing the entire thing, I took a little bit of, well, sandable primer and put it on the end of a paintbrush. Do not use a good paintbrush for that, because you will ruin it. And then just basically filled in the cracks and then sand it down so it was nice and even without having to, well, throw the entire sculpture in the oven for just one little part. And speaking of little parts, R32s have a tiny little light in between the two rear tail lights. Now that's an easy way to spot a R33 between an R32. R33 will have the tail lights or the little signal light at the bottom half of the rear tail lights. Now, which brings us back to the rear portion of the car, which is a license plate custom saying Pizza Boy. Now the real question is it a Gallo 12 or a Gallo 24? Now we're going to add in some tow hook spots for later, and then paint up the, well, headlights, and then bounce around to the front bumper. Oh my god, doing the voiceover for this is not exactly easy. Being the final episode, we're kind of bouncing around a little bit more than normal, mainly because, well, we gotta make sure the entire car is show-worthy, so we're not generally focusing on one area like we normally would. We're kind of bouncing around a lot, so this isn't exactly easy for me to catch up. So obviously we're fixing the front end lines up here a little bit before installing everything, because once everything is installed, it becomes a little difficult to work with. It's a little easier to basically have everything cleaned and prepped up without having to work around the oven-baked parts, because, well, things smear and stain, and it's a little harder to just work around more things, and if you have less things in the way, it just makes more sense. Speaking of things getting in the way, the reason I'm kind of behind schedule with this car and the build was, well, a lot of off-camera work, and I wanted the car finished. Secondly, I have, well, several big gardens, not all of which will be featured like I mentioned at the beginning of the video. There's a couple gardens that I have that are basically flower gardens that I kind of, well, just decided to showcase the little car off and risk hundreds of hours of work by putting it in the sun. However, it did kind of pay off, got some cool extra shots, and, well, brought it back inside to, well, have a mini car show as well. So you have that to look forward to at the end of the video. And as always, if you appreciate all the hard work that goes into these little clay sculptures, be sure to smash that like button, because, well, it definitely means a lot to a guy like me who spends a lot more time inside than I would like, because, well, I got gardens to work on, and trying to balance between a 9 to 5, a garden, and a YouTube channel with sculpting and stop motion is, well, a handful to say the least. Not to mention I have a small petting zoo as well, with 2 dogs, 2 cats, and fish that need to, well, be vacated to the pond outside, which I also have to redo this year. Busy guy, unfortunately, but I somehow managed to, well, get a vast majority of things done. Just a lot of sleep is generally lost. Anyway, be sure to keep your eyes peeled for Milton the Moose. Hopefully your eyes are a little less tired than mine. And just to give you a little hint, Milton the Moose is that goofy looking character that is used as the profile picture, and if you're this far in the video, chances are he's already appeared on screen, so you might want to rewind a bit and, well, timestamp correctly when he shows up on screen exactly, and you will get a shout out in the next how-to video, and get your comment pinned at the top of the comment section. I am not retaking that. That was a few screw-ups, unfortunately. Anyway, good luck, dear viewers, and hopefully you are, well, a little more on the ball than me with my voiceovers. And speaking of, well, being on the ball, I decided to, well, make a whole lot of extra work for myself during this video and make extra parts because, well, things weren't good enough apparently, so I decided to add a little bit extra detail to those side skirts and give them an extra little oven-baked clay piece just to kind of give it more of a race car feel. And of course, well, going through headlights, 2 or 3 sets of them, unfortunately, because I was really unsatisfied with how the front end was looking at the beginning, so a majority of the off-camera work went here. And, well, the one scene in particular here, which we'll cut to right away, you'll probably see a massive difference between the front end from now and then after, because, well, I just decided to redo things off camera because it was a lot less work than doing it on camera, and yeah, it was just frustrating, and I wanted to make sure everything was done correctly because I'm a big Skyline fan and wanted things done right. And speaking of which, seeing how we went through 3 sets of headlights, we decided to stick with the original ones that I made in the first place, because why do all that extra work for no good reason? But at least it made me decide which ones I actually liked, so we're going to finish coloring those in, and then go over the entire surface of the body, making sure everything is clean, while we still don't have a, well, plasticine roof on the thing, so it gives my hands an extra little bit of space to put, well, on the car before, well, I don't have that anymore, and because essentially with plasticine it's always soft, and if you overwork it and over touch things, you're going to start losing detail, and just the heat from your hands will actually start melting it over time. So this is part of the reason why things took a little longer than expected. You kind of have to be very careful on every single little step, not to mention, yeah, you're going to have to be doing things maybe 2 or 3 times over, depending on how detailed you want your car or whatever it is you might be working on. And I may as well throw this in there just because some of you might be curious as to what tool I'm using in particular for scraping and cleaning off the car. It's referred to as a rake, and you can get several different styles, small and big, and, well, preferably for a step like this, you want to use the largest rake possible so you leave less tool marks, as well, you just scrape off the most amount of dirt that you can possible without having to put too much energy that you've already put into the sculpture. Now we're going to make a tiny little, well, for lack of a better term, grill brace, because there's a little small piece that goes in between the 2 headlights there, which we're just going to, well, wrap in plasticine and use some very thin armature wire just so it has a little bit of extra support so it's not going to fall off or melt away. And then we're going to add a little bit more plasticine to the actual doors, mostly in the middle, and then kind of, well, blend it into the rest of the car, working it from side to side to kind of give it a high point straight in the middle, just to give it a little bit more of a curve, because, well, imports in particular tend to be a lot less boxy than some of the muscle cars that I'm used to working on, so we want to make sure things are a little bit more oblong and oval shape in comparison to, well, nice and boxy. And now it's time to touch up the windows. And then slide in those little tow hooks we made earlier in the little tow hook slots that we also punched into the back bumper earlier in this video. Be sure to just use a little bit of glue so they don't fall off on you. Now the super annoying part, carving out a plasticine door handle because this car does not have sticky outy door handles as well. My grandpa used to call door handles that stuck out, so that was kind of a pain in the butt. Now we are on, well, one of the final steps, adding the rear view mirrors because, well, I don't like adding these things on too early because they kind of tend to get in the way, and if you move your hand wrong, you will rip the mirror off, then you're doing some more rework, which has already taken place lots on this car. Now we're on, well, one of the final steps, which I thought was going to be the final step, not gonna lie, when I first started it, doing the roof line. But unfortunately, I got picky once I added the plasticine to the actual roof, and decided I wanted to redo the rear window. But luckily for you viewers, what took me nearly, well, probably almost a night or a good evening to do takes mere seconds for you, and we'll skip right over that to beauty shots because, well, this car project has gone long enough. So this brings us to the very last picky step, where essentially I just made a big plate to slide in place of the old window just so it sticks out a little bit past the actual pillars of the window, because Skylines will have a window that sticks out just a little bit past the actual pillars, and of course I didn't notice that till the very end. But luckily, I've caught it before the project was completely finished, and then decided to add a piece of pizza for a drift toy, which brings us to the final beauty shot. So here we are at my flower garden, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to smash that like button if you haven't already, comment below what you think of the project, share with friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new. Anyway, thank you for watching, dear viewers, and well, we'll be on to the next project very soon, which will probably be a Mustang, and I will probably work on a few projects at once, alternating between weeks, between a car, and perhaps something else. Anyway, I will talk to you later towards the end of the video. Thank you for watching, viewers. Car family. Anyway, thank you for watching to the very end. Be sure to leave a like if you haven't already, comment below what you think, share with friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new. Anyway, that's all from me. Till next time, take it easy.